What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are talking about a sneaky jig technique to catch some of those finicky fall time bass. Let's dive into it, guys.
I'm about to find out what they are.
Pretty good one.
Oh crap, yeah, he's bigger than I thought. He's bigger than I thought he was. Yeah, I was fighting that fish, guys. I thought he was like a 2-pounder. I got to the boat and jumped. This joker's fat on that top line jig. Little 3/8 ounce.
All right, guys, fall fishing is here. The temps are cooling off. The fish are getting a lot more active than they have been in the last couple months. And, you know, stereotypical fall time fishing is following the bait, right? You know, the bait will lead you to the fish, and you're gonna be using moving bait, more shad oriented type baits like flukes, top water, crankbaits, glide baits, minnow. You know, I've had a great fall on the minnow, targeting these bass that are out here in the middle of the lake, eating these suspended bait balls. It just blows my mind. It's a crazy bite. You know, the fish that are out there that we had no idea even roamed out there, you know, pre-forward facing sonar era. But with that being said, sometimes you gotta not get too sidetracked with the stereotypical fall time fishing patterns, because there is a lot of times where you can catch them on this sneaky little finesse jig. Not every fish is going to want to be keying in on bait fish. You know, you'll have some of your shallower bass still eating on bluegill, and the crawfish pattern is really going to start heating up, especially as we move into those cooler water temps, getting on into the early winter time. The crawfish pattern is going to be great for targeting bass, and we'll break down the specifics of this very jig here in just a second. But another strategy that I use this jig for is, you know, if I'm fishing with forward facing sonar and I'm in an area that's got a bunch of bait, you know, these fish are being really active, moving up and down in the water column, and I'm targeting them with like a jerk bait, a swim bait, or a minnow, glide bait, anything that has some drawing power that's going to expose these fish. You know, a lot of times these fish will race up to the bait, or, you know, they'll be hug tied on the bottom. You'll bring the bait over them and they'll rise off the bottom, just kind of exposing themselves. And that's why I always have this finesse jig tied on in the fall season. You know, for example, you can throw the jerk bait out there, get the fish to rise off the bottom, then you know exactly where that fish is, and then you just flip old Mr. Jig right in there and boom, set the hook. It is a very effective way to fish a jig. And I mean, you can do that with like a Ned rig and a Texas rig, all kinds of stuff. But so let's talk about the specs of this jig. So this time of year, I'm really gonna want to downsize and give them a more finesse-y look. And that's when I swapped to the finesse jig. You know, I did a video not too long ago, summertime jig fishing with a big bulky football head jig. And I don't like that presentation this time of year. I like something small. I'm looking for bites. And I mean, just because you downsize doesn't mean you're only gonna catch small fish. This thing still catches some big bass, smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth, you name it, you're gonna catch them. And these are the tight line jigs, wood thumper jigs. I like 1/4 ounce and 3/8 ounce. A lot different from the summertime. In the summertime, I like, you know, big bulky 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, even an ounce sometimes. So total different presentation in the fall time. You're gonna wanna be real subtle. You know, if you're flipping in on a fish, whether you're on the bank or watching them on forward facing sonar, you're gonna want that slow fall, you know, not spooking the fish with a whole fast presentation dropping, you know, big pulsating skirt on the jig. You want that slow fall, very finesse-y presentation to that fish. And I'll show you the difference. Like, this is the one that I throw in the summertime. You see how long that skirt is, big head, and whenever it falls down, the skirt is gonna pulsate really big. You're gonna have a big presentation. Now here's the finesse jig that I use this time of year, you know, lot smaller presentation as it's falling down. So I downsized the trailer and of course the whole jig. But guys, I really keep it simple. So I'm throwing pretty much all green pumpkin jig. This one has green pumpkin with some green flake in it. And I've got some more that are basically the same jig, but they've got some strands of orange. And that's really gonna, you know, help you get more bites when you're targeting the crawfish, because the crawfish are starting to get like that reddish oranges this time of year. So it just really helps you get a couple extra bites if you got those orange strands in there. And then as far as my trailers, I also keep it very simple too. My go-to is the Zoom Speed Craw. I love this little guy. The little flappers right here still put off a good vibration, a good movement, but they're not too aggressive, as opposed to like the 4-inch muscleback craw from Exxon that I use in the summertime. I really like this smaller presentation. Any green pumpkin, this is green pumpkin red. I love that little bit of red flake. And then the Exxon muscleback finesse craw. This is a 3 1/4 inch bait in border craw color. It's very similar to the speed craw. Both are great options. I really like both of these trailers, and like I said, I keep it simple. Those are the only two that I throw. And you can get this done in clear water, stained water, even muddy water. If the water's like chocolate milk, you're probably not going to be throwing a jig anyways. But there's 2 ways that I like to rig these. Of course, I'd just run it all the way up the shank of the hook and do that flat horizontal presentation as you see right there. And then you can also give it a little bit more of an aggressive feel. This works especially well with the football head jigs. I don't do it as much with my finesse jigs just because I like that more horizontal, streamlined, less aggressive approach. But you can also do it where you kind of kick the tails up. And so when it's on the bottom, it's just going to give it a little bit more of an aggressive feel. This is kind of what the crawfish look like when they're being aggressive and using their pinchers and stuff. But I mean, you can do both ways. I typically just rig it that straight horizontal, more simple finesse approach like that right there. So now we got to talk about the secret formula. Year round, got to do these 2 things, or at least one or the other. Chartreuse marker, the garlic marker, is a go-to 100% of the time. Every jig I throw, especially if I'm targeting smallmouth or spots, they especially love this chartreuse. So just do a little bit of marking on the tails. Nothing fancy, nothing too hardcore or major. You can't really see a difference right here, but when the jig is in the water, you can definitely tell a difference. Gives off that more chartreuse hue. Looks like the tails of a baby bluegill. And I do that year round, even if, you know, these fish aren't even keyed in on bluegill. And then something else that I started doing this year that is especially good when you're targeting crawfish is using this orange thump gel. And it's just in a squeeze tube. Just put a little bit on the trailer and in the skirts. Seems to hold a lot better if you put some in the skirts as well, but it just gives off that crawfish feel. And this is the Orange Crush scent by Thump Gel. I just started using that this spring, and it's helped me catch so many more fish. And it's not a sales gimmick at all. I don't work with them at all, but I was with my buddy Austin throwing like the same exact bait, and he was catching 4 to 5 times more fish than me on a chatterbait by rubbing this stuff in. And I started doing it, and boom, I started catching them. So I was like, yep, that definitely sold me on that. But this jig from Tightline comes ready to go. You could trim down the guard if you want to. I typically just leave them how they are. I don't really have any issues. You know, it doesn't noticeably affect my hookup ratio, so I typically just leave them straight out like they are, straight out of the pack. But guys, as far as my rod and reel setup, I use a 7-foot medium heavy Duckett Jacob Wheeler Series 2.0. This rod is great for any of your more finessey soft plastics. I throw the finesse jig on it, of course. I like Texas Rig Cinco. The Magnum Ned rig is good on it. Just a really good balanced, lightweight, very, very sensitive rod. And then I've got a 7 2-to-1 Cast King Skeet Reese reel on there. Typically I throw 15-pound fluorocarbon. I've got 20-pound fluorocarbon on it right now just because I plan to do some of those close quarter flips, fishing around the dam and stuff, you know, fishing around wood a lot too. Anytime that I'm, you know, flipping close quarters or around structure or current or anything, I'm definitely going to want to bump up that line size just to prevent from breaking off or anything. But guys, this is a really great technique to use in the fall time all the way into the winter and early spring. When the water temps start cooling up, getting closer to the summertime, that's when I'm going to want to jump up to my big bulkier 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce football head jig. But for these cooler months, you need to get you some of these Tightline Wood Thumper finesse jigs. These things are legit. So I will have everything linked down in the description below if you guys want to check it out. You're more than welcome to. It's definitely going to help you catch some more fish if you do. I'm not lying about that for sure. But guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Freaking biggin'. Oh my gosh, that is insane.